We're going to turn your Elementor form into an online quote form. Look at this. I'm increasing the quantity and the price is $19.99 and it's totaling it up for us. The send button is missing, but I'm going to show you how you could have the submit or you could even remove it. You may have different options. And again, you want them to go and increase their quantity and submit a quote to you. But what about having multiple options? And again, it totals it all up for you. Did I tell you that this was just an Elementor form and now we've got checkboxes as well? And look, there's the send button if you want to include it. Let's say you got and selected up your options, it's totaled it up for you. You can now hit pay with PayPal. And yes, we're going to do this with the multiple options as well. And you can have as many as you want, and then you go and hit pay with PayPal and it will take you there. This was all with just Elementor. There are some JavaScripty codes you got to add in, and I'm going to be sharing them all with you in the video description, but there's no third-party plugin. Okay, this is all with the Elementor form and just thinking outside the box. So you could now start collecting quotes on your website or even allow people to pick their options and they could either then submit to you and then you get back to them and discuss a bit more, or maybe they just let you know what they're interested in and then you're going to quote them properly, or they could pay for it directly via your website. And because it goes through PayPal and we're not worried about any APIs or any funky stuff here, you're just connecting to your PayPal account. They'll get an email, you'll get an email, and you can even send them over to a payment receive page that will then have further instructions if you want to say that or not. But let's just cut to it. Now, this video does contain loads of steps because I'm going to show you all of those individual forms. Please use the timestamp to jump around. I'm going to start off by just talking about some styling options available to you that a lot of people are not aware of. And then we're going to go into each form step by step. And yes, it is easy and simple to apply. So look at the timestamp, decide on which one you want to go for, or I would recommend you follow through from start to finish because all of the forms kind of are an evolution of the very first one. So let's just have a look at some styling first. On the page, we have an example form, and I just want to show you how you could apply some individual styling to each field. We've got 3 on here: name, email, and message. You can go to the style tab and you could start to give a background color, the typography and all of that. But what if for the email you wanted to have an individual style applied to that? It's really dead simple and easy to do. What you got to make sure is that your field has an ID. So if we go to the advanced tab here, the ID for this is email. I could change it and call it rubber dubber ducky, whatever you want, but we're going to leave it as email. Then go over to the advanced tab, and this is for the form. Go down to custom CSS and drop in a little bit of code. And I've got hashtag form field email. So if you called it rubber dubber ducky, you would have rubber dubber ducky there. Background color, I've given it 1 and I've set the font weight to be bold. Now, you won't always see it in edit mode and you might go, well, has that worked or not? What you got to do is go and click preview. You will now see that that email has got an individual background color and the weight of it as well. So if you wanted to apply different colors, and you would argue and go, well, why would I need to do that? Maybe there is a field which is required and you just want it to stand out a little bit more. Now you could do that. These are all little bits of styling options that a lot of people are not aware of, but they are dead simple to do. Another style tip I want to give you is with regards to checkbox in Elementor form. So over here, we've got a checkbox and I've got my options and I'm going to make it be an inline list. Notice how the box over here isn't actually inline. When you click it, we get an orange background and black text. And again, you could start to mess around, but styling for this is very limited. I don't like how the box is kind of elevated a bit. Well, we're going to change that with a bit of CSS. Now, number 1 tip I want to give you is I've gone and created a field and I've called it options. If I go to the advanced tab, the ID for this I've called option. Okay, you can call it options if you want. I've just called it options. You go to the advanced tab, what we're going to do is drop in a bit of CSS that you will find in the video description. And this is now saying selector for the Elementor field option, okay? So we're now touching that particular field, display flags, and I've gone and given it an accent color. And you'll now see that when I click here, you can see we get a different color pop up. I could change that to be what I want. And you could modify this if you feel like you want to rearrange, you know, how elevated or how much in the center it is. But just to remind you, if I get rid of that code, that's what it looked like before. Look how close the option is to the box as well. It's now slightly separated. So I'm adding in a bit of breathing space, number 1, but I've also got control over how close it is to the box and how elevated it is and what the background color is as well. Again, another tip for making your checkboxes on your Elementor forms be a little bit more customized to your bespokeness of your branding website. We're going to turn this Elementor form into a quote form like this. Okay, so every time I increase the quantity, there is a total. Now, there is no submit button here because I've hidden it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. You could leave it in or you could leave it out. Maybe you don't want them to submit details to you. You're going to say, look, do you want to purchase a product? Well, based on the price and the quantity, here's what it's going to come to, like an online quote facility. I'm going to show you how to do that. And this is all with an Elementor form. So over here, we've got the form, and I'm going to quickly go through the fields for you. And then we have a bit of HTML. And yeah, you may want to make changes to this. I mean, you can go and click the link and video description to go and get the code. And if you feel like you want to modify it, you can either go into it or stick it into ChatGPT or something else and just clarify what your field names are. But it is pretty self-explanatory. Let's just look at this form. We have name, email, price, quantity, total. The price field is a text field, okay? And there's a reason for that, because I will then be showing you when I go over to preview the actual dollar sign. You could have a pound sign, you could have whatever currency you want. So on the edit, it looks like a number, but when you're actually published and you're now previewing or you're on a live site, I wanted to stick the dollar sign in. So that's why it is a text field. I've called it price, and I've gone and stuck in a placeholder. This is actually just a placeholder, okay? The actual value sits in the JavaScript, okay? So if I was to go and put $20 in there, it would still use $19.99 because that is what is in the backend code. But it's a good idea to go and stick something else in. And also, what I do want to mention is that when you click, you can't actually change this, okay? And again, this is all in the CSS. Your mind is going to explode when I show you this, okay? So we've got a value in, but you can't modify it. Just like you can't even modify the total. You can change the quantity, but you can't do anything here other than copy and paste it somewhere if you want. Now, the important bit about this price field is that I have given it the ID price. This is quite important, because we're now going to say price multiplied by quantity equals the total or the value that will appear here. So that's the price field. It is a text field. The quantity is a number field, giving it a title. And I've just put a placeholder of 0, minimum value 1, and you can go up to 9,999. It's up to you if you want to stick a value in. I find it's not a bad idea to do that. Otherwise, you'll have someone ridiculously sticking in 1,000,000 or something. So a number field, quantity, and again, I've got the word quantity in the ID. It helps to keep the name and the ID similar so that you don't get too confused. Let's now go over to the total field. This is a text field. Why? Again, very similar to the price field. When you actually are previewing it, I want to have the dollar sign in there. So if you're not going to have symbols in there, that could have been a number field. Same with the price. But because we are going to show the currency symbol, it makes absolute sense. So we've got a label of total. There is no placeholder. I'm going to leave it blank. You could stick a 0 in there if you want, and it will change whenever you change the quantity. I mean, it's not a bad idea to do that, I suppose, but I'll leave that up to you. And then in the advanced tab for that field, the ID is total. I don't think I can get any clearer with this. Price, quantity, total. And then you've got your IDs, and that's kind of it, right? That's all you're doing with the form. It's what you do in the HTML bit that I've dropped below. This bit of code, it's ensuring that we are using the correct ID field. So you can see form field quantity, form field price, form field total. And what it does down here is perform the calculation where the total equals quantity times price. You can see over here what is the initial price field. So it's got $19.99. So if I was going to change this to be $60, I would change it over here. You can see where it's now applying in the dollar sign. So you could change this to be euros or pounds or whatever is your currency. You could even pop in words. So maybe you're not going to have the dollar sign. You might want to have that afterwards maybe or before. And you might just have GBP or USD or Indian rupees, whatever you want to go for. And that's basically it in terms of the JavaScript. It's not a massive amount of code, but this is how simple and beautiful it is. Now let's go back over to the form. Go to the Advanced tab, and inside of Custom CSS, we've got a fair bit of code. It's actually really, really simple. Form field total. So this is the total field. We're going to assign a background color, quite dark. We've got a font color of white, and I've made the weight of it be bold. Now, when you're editing, you won't always see this, okay? So don't start thinking it's not working. Just make sure you publish or just go and click preview and you will see it on screen. Over here, though, this is where I'm hiding the submit button. So let me now get rid of it. There's the submit button. And if you want to make it smaller, left align, change the color, you would do that in the normal form styling options. The reason why I've got rid of it is because maybe this is just an online quote. However, if you wanted them to do the quote and get their total value and then submit to you, you might stick in another field for address or phone number, whatever you want basically. And then they go and hit submit and it will bring back all of those fields. It'll bring back the original price, the quantity, the total, and everything else on here. So this is something that, again, a lot of people aren't aware of. This is how simple and easy it is to kind of not show that field. And here's another thing. Remember I said the price field, you could not click on it? This is what you need to do. Pointer events, none. I mean, I have aligned it to the right again, like I did with the total field, which is just over there, because that's how it should look when you come to do currencies. Otherwise, it won't look so good. So, currency values do look really good on the right-hand side. But the form field price, pointer events, none. You take that off and I could start clicking into there, and you don't want anyone to do that because then they could actually start to modify the value as well. So by doing that, the form fields, drop in a bit of JavaScript T-codey thing, and then add in a bit of CSS, you now have a basic online quote form that looks like this. Notice the dark color, like I just said. I go and change it and we get the white font and it's a nice weighty color as well. This form is an Elementor form. We have options. So I could go to option A, which is $5.99, and I could increase it and there's my total. Or maybe I go for option C, which has a completely different price, and I could go and change my quantity. What about option B? Well, that's got another different price. So maybe you've got an online calculator and you've got various options and you're basically saying, look, you got to pick one. What do you want to go for? And you're allowing them to have a quote on what the total would be. The submit button is missing. I'm going to show you how we did that. It's dead simple. So let's have a go. It's basically an Elementor form. Like I keep saying, we've got some fields: name, email, options, price, quantity, and total. The options field is a select field. We've got our options. I've gone and given it a label called options. And the advanced tab, the ID for this is options. It's always good to keep your name and your IDs as close as possible in similarity, because otherwise it gets a bit confusing. The price field is a text field, because you might not see it in preview or edit, but when you go to the live, you will see it in preview. We're going to have a $sign there, so that's why it's a text field. I've called it price. I haven't put any value in there because the value that is returned is based on the options that you select from here. And if we go to the advanced tab, the ID for this is price. Okay, so you got options, ID options. You got price, which is a text field with the ID price. We then have quantity. This is a number field. And the label is quantity over there, placeholder 0. So it might start at 0 because you have to kind of put something in, or you don't want to start at 1, basically. Start at 0 and allow them to go up and down. Minimum value 1, maximum value of 999. You can make it required if you want. The ID is quantity. Okay, so price is price, quantity is quantity. And if we go to the total field, and I hope you can see all this on screen, it's a text field because, again, we're going to have currency. So you could have dollar, pound sign. You could even put the word GBP, whatever you want. And then I've got the label total, and the advanced tab, the ID is total as well. That's all you're doing with the form, okay? Sorry, there is some custom CSS. We'll come back onto that in a moment. So the idea is that you got these options, and at the moment we've got 3 options. You pick them. They will have separate values assigned, and then you can increase or decrease it based on the quantity. Now, this is just one set of options, okay? If we now go down here to where we have the JavaScript, link for this is in the video description. If you find this is not exactly what you want it to be, just take the code and stick it into ChatGPT and tell it what you want it to do, and it will modify it for you. Or you can work it out. So you can see option A, option B, option C. So I want it for option A to return $5.99. So you pick that, it will return $5.99. I could, if I want, have changed the value here. So if I go back to my form, rather than just saying option A, I could have said option A hyphen $5.99. So it clearly states it there for you. I mean, you could argue, well, do you need to have the price field there? It's up to you because you can jig around with this bit of code to make it work for you. But you got to make sure that if you do go and change the title of this to say option A red, you got to make sure over here you've gone and popped the word option A red. Otherwise, it won't work for you. So make sure that is like a one-to-one. No need to put a $sign in here because it's just going to return a numerical value. And then what it does is it kind of just goes through and does the calculation. What it also says is that your quantity must be 1. And that's basically it with the JavaScripty code. You can go and study it. You can go and get some AI to fully blown explain it to you in a lot more detail. But that's all you got to do. Now, inside of the form, we do have some custom CSS, which I will show you here. So for the total field, which you can see, we've got a background color, and I've made the font color be white, and we've made it be weightier. For the form field option, so that is now the options field, I've gone and given it a bit of a gray color, and you can see it on screen. Over here, I have said hide the submit button. So if we just do this and we get rid of that bit of CSS, the submit button will appear. You can style it in the form if you want, because maybe you want them to submit details to you. So you might have like message, you might have address field, you might have phone number field, whatever you want to add, go and add, and they could send it to you. Or it's just an online form. So there's no need for the submit button. Over here, I have said that the price field, I don't want you to click it. So we've got pointer events none. So if I was to apply that to the options field, you wouldn't be able to select any options, which would be very, very ridiculous. But if there were any fields on here you don't want them to modify or be able to click on and change the value, pointer events none. I can pick my options, I can increase the quantity, but I can't change the total because that's a calculated field. And I can't change the value or overwrite or overtype whatever is in here. Really dead simple to do with Elementor forms. I'm going to take Elementor forms further than you've ever thought possible because now we've got a form and we've got multiple options. So I could go here and pick option B. I've set them all to be $1 for simplicity. And I might say I'm going to have 5 of them. The price total is $5 and we have a grand total down here. What if I want services number 3, option 3? And I'm going to have 2 of them. Well, that's $2 because they are priced at $1 each. And the total is now $7. So rather than just having a single layer of options, you could have multiple options. And there could be a submit send button that they could send to you and then you do what you want with it. Or it's just an online calculator on your WordPress page. We're doing this with Elementor form and it's really simple and easy to do. Look, over here we have a form, okay? And we do have a range of fields. We've got name and email. We have an options field. This is a select, and you can see my options for option A, B, and C. I've given it a label, and in the advanced tab, I've given it the ID for options. Okay, this is really important. Make sure you are very crystal clear with what your IDs are. Then we have a quantity field. This is labeled as quantity. It's a number field because we're going to allow you to increase and decrease how much quantity you want. Minimum value 1, 999 for a maximum value, and I've got a placeholder of 0. This is important now. The advanced tab is called quantity underscore options. Why have I gone underscore options? Well, because there's 2 quantities in play here. Okay, let's now go to the price field. So this is now going to be the calculated price based on the option you select. And the quantity, this is a text field because we are going to show the currency. You could have dollar, pound sign, GBP. You know, you can have words in there as well. There is no placeholder. The label is price and the advanced tab is price underscore options because it relates to the options. Okay. Then we go services. Again, this is a select. It could be a checkbox. Okay. So there are various ways you can make this work for you. But I've just gone for select. We've got our services. Notice I have put the value in as well, just to make it clear to you that, oh, well, you know, services 3 is like $1,000, so you might not want to go for that. We go to the advanced tab and the ID for this is services. You go to the quantity field, exact copy of what we had above. The only difference is that when we go to the advanced tab, it's now quantity underscore services. And when you go to the price one, it's a copy of what we had above. It's a price field. It's a text field because of the currency. But the ID is price underscore services. Okay. So if you were going to have like options, services, and then another layer and then another layer, you repeat the quantity and the price, but you just make sure you give them unique IDs. Otherwise, it gets very, very confusing and it will not work for you. Or it might work for you, but I don't think it will work. We have a total field, which is text, because we will be showing the currency on, when you're on the live version. Placeholder, I've just put 00 in. So you can start off with a value in there as a placeholder. And the advanced tab is total. There's no need to have total quantity, total services. You could do if you were going to have loads and loads of different layers and it was going to be convoluted, but we want to keep this simple. So that's all you got to do. There is some custom CSS applied as well. I'll quickly show you that. If we scroll down over here, I'm applying a custom color to the form field total for this one over here. Darker background color, and it will have a white color when you actually have a value in there. I am hiding the submit button, so if I go and get rid of this bit of code over here, you will now see the send button has appeared. So do you want them to send you the details, or do you want it to just be an online calculator? And you could add in further fields. Okay, rearrange it how you want. And by the way, I have set some of these fields to be like 40%, 30%, 20%, whatever, to get them nicely sit in a line. Then down here, I've also applied some colors to price options and price services. So a bit of a gray color going on there, and I've aligned them to the right as well. The important bit is the HTML bit over here, where we've gone and dropped in some JavaScript. This is quite important. If you want to hack into this, hack into it. It's pretty self-explanatory, if I'm honest. Look, there's my option 1. There's my second layer, which is services. If you were going to have a third layer, you would go and drop it in. Over here, this is where it starts to do the calculations. Now, if you get stuck, just take this code, stick it into ChatGPT, and just say, this is what this has, but I now want to add in an extra field, and I want it all to, combine into the total. So just add in another layer and explain what those fields are and what their IDs are, and it will work it out for you. But this is now going to do the calculation, and then it sums it all up for your grand total. And this is what you get. And this is what I love about how brilliant this bit of code is. So I go for option B, which is only $1. You can increase it to what you want. Let's leave it as service 1. And I might just go for 1 or loads and loads and loads. And if you want to overwrite it like that, you can do. What you can't do is click on the price field, because that's a calculated field. But everything else you could click on, but it totals it up for you, an online calculator. So you're letting people know, look, if you do work with me and you do go for these options, this is what the price could be, or this is what it starts from. Or you got a submit button, and then they send the details to you. This is all with Elementor forms. You could take your Elementor forms even further by adding in multiple options and letting people know what the total cost would be. We've got here some checkboxes, and I may go for option 4 and I may go for option 1. The total is $5.20. Look at that, 25. Let's go for option 5 as well. It totals it up for you. You can have a send button to send the details off now to your admin or whoever, with some further fields like message, address, phone number, or any other options. You can have whatever you want. This is Elementor Forms. Or you could completely remove the send field as well. Let me show you how. We got a form and we only got 4 fields on it. Name, email, we got options, which is checkbox. You can see the options I've added here. I've got 5 at the moment, and I've made it be an inline list. There is a bit of CSS in here to style out the boxes to make sure they're in line a little bit better. I'll show you that in a moment. What's important though is the advanced tab, where I've gone and given it the ID options. You got to do that to make sure the code works correctly. So if you wanted to give it a different name, be my guest. And then we have a total field. This is just a text field, even though it shows a number, because we are adding in currency like dollars, pound signs, or you could even put GBP. Placeholder 0, and in the advanced tab, we have the ID called total. Again, you got to stick an ID into there. If we go to the advanced tab, I'll show you the CSS, which is here. So we're adding in a background color and a font color of white for the total. For the checkbox, we have some styling, which aligns things. Look at the checkbox, okay? If I go and get rid of this bit of code, you can see everything was a little bit crammed together. and the box is now not really in line with the text. We go and add that back in. Things look so much better, and we are also able to apply our own branded color. Now, this field here, if I was to go and uncomment this like that, did you notice the send button has disappeared? And if I comment it out again, the send button is back in place, and you can style that out. So if you want to have it, have it. If you don't want to have it, well, the code is there for you to mess around with. And then underneath the form, we have a HTML widget, and that's where the magic applies with how this basically works. The very important bit is that whatever you state here, so option 1 $5, you got to make sure that matches here. If you go and change that to be 55, this is not going to work for that option when it comes to totaling it up. So if you've gone and popped in particular words when your checkbox or your select or radios or whatever, make sure that matches what you have here. And then I've said return 5. So if I'd gone and said return like that, when you go and select option 1, it would actually go and pop that number in, which would not make sense. But you have quite a lot of control over that, okay? So it should be crystal clear what you need to change. And then down here, it goes and performs the totaling. So it now says, doesn't matter how many you pick, whether you pick one or all of them, it will now total it up. Because that's what you're going to have. Look, I could start picking all of them up, and I could then hit the send button, or take out the send submit button and just have it as an online calculator with Elementor forms. This is totally going to blow your mind. This is an Elementor form with the checkboxes. And if I was to go and pick option 1, which is $1, and option 3, which is 15, the total goes to 16. 1 plus 15. Get a calculator out to check if you don't believe me. And then I could go and hit pay with PayPal. But let me show you something. When I click this, nothing's going to happen. What the heck is going on? This should be working. It's because the code I'm going to share with you will not allow you to go and pay until you've completed the name and email fields. And when I now click the button, I can now pay for these services, and it's got the $16. You go and hit next, you would go and make your payment. I, as the vendor, would get email and details, and you, as the sender, would also get details. And by the way, when the customer does get their email, it will actually tell them that you purchased option 1 and option 3, and you could make that be a little bit more clearer, but they will get informed within the email. Why am I telling you about this? Because maybe you want to sell some items on your website, but you don't want to go via the full WooCommerce or some other solution where you got to install a plugin. This is all with Elementor Forms, and there is a little bit of something you have to do with PayPal. Believe me, it's really quick and easy, but let me show you how we created this. Seriously, it is that simple. Name, email, standard fields. We got options, which is a checkbox field. I've gone and popped in my options, be very clear on what you pop down here. I've gone and stated what the values are as well, so you know what you're clicking or adding. The important bit is when you go to the advanced tab, the ID for this is called options, because the HTML script we're going to use is going to now know what it needs to use when it comes to doing calculations. Underneath the options, we have a total field. This is a text field, because you may want to show the currency. You don't have to, but I think it's a good idea to do that. GBP, or even the $ or the pound sign. So it's a text field, and the ID for this is total. Again, try and make sure you keep things crystal clear. If we go to the advanced tab, there is a little bit of CSS being applied here as well. So we've got some here for the form total field. So form field total. So I've made it be a darker color with a font of white. Over here, I have hidden the submit field because I want you to pay via PayPal. If I get rid of this bit of code here, can you see the send field has now appeared? So if you do, it wouldn't really make sense, right, to submit and then have pay with PayPal. It would kind of get a bit confusing. So I think it makes total sense to get rid of that. We've also applied a bit of a color and styling to our checkbox as well. So this allows me to have basically a bit of red color over here. If I get rid of this bit of code, can you see how everything is a bit cramped up and it's not perfectly aligned? Again, all of these codes are in the video description for you to go and click and play with. Now let's focus on the two very important bits of script. Again, you can get them from the video description. The first one over here is the pay with PayPal. And all you've got to do here is change the address for where the payment's going to go to. Okay. So if you've got like a business account or a personal account or however you're going to have this set up, okay, the payments would go there. And you can also change the description. So mine at the moment will just say the word purchase. you may want to change that, say, purchased from Web Squadron, purchased from whatever website. You don't have to state the items because that will be fed through via this second bit of JavaScript. But this, all it's doing is saying, make sure that when it comes to the payment or the value that they will be charged for, you must be using this total field, okay? So whatever is fed into there, that is what is sent over there to the total field. And the name and email we have over here will feed into the name and email when it comes to go over to PayPal. But we're not using any API here. You know, that's what's so cool about it, is I'm not having to go and set up like special transaction things. There is something you will have to do to PayPal, and I strongly recommend you do this, and I will show you this in a moment. But this is all you do. Just go and change the email address over here. And then the second bit of script, this is the magic where it now takes the totals and combines them into the total over here. So where I said option one, hyphen $1, you got to make sure that matches the statement over here. So if you've gone and put 1 and then you go and type in 100 here, it ain't going to work. It's got to match exactly, all right? And then I'm saying what value to return. So return 1, 1, 15, 20, 25. So it corresponds to the values. And then what it does down here, it goes and performs the calculation. If you need to change this to work particular for you, just pick the code up, stick it into some AI, ChatGPT, tell it what you want to change, and it will work it out for you. But you need to have this PayPal button to obviously send it to PayPal. And if you go to the advanced tab for that particular widget over here, I have gone and added in a bit of CSS. Again, I'm going to share this in the video description. This is where I'm styling the color. So if I was to go and change this to be like that, you can modify it to work with your brand. The padding, I have found, okay, that sometimes padding bottom I had to put in. Sometimes I didn't. I can't fully overly explain it, but I have found that padding bottom 30 just works a bit better. In fact, you could argue it probably should be about 35 even, or even 34. You know, go and jig around with it. So you can stylize that button to look how you want it to look. And don't forget, because it is HTML, if you want to go and change the wording, you can do within the script. The important thing is that when you've logged into your PayPal account as the vendor or the admin on the website, it might look a bit different whether you have got a business account or a personal account. This is just a dummy account that I was using to set up and show you how this works. You need to go and find the option called website preferences, okay? This is the same wording whether you're on a business account or not. Normally you got to go and click the settings cog or even go to seller's tool, but it'll either be in there and then you will find website preferences or it will be in seller tools. What you want to do is click on that and you will find an option called auto return. I recommend that if you are doing this and you are going to add PayPal onto a website, I would either set up a separate account, because what this will do is now say that every time there is a payment made, it will now auto return. Once the payment's made, it will send them over to this page. So if you're using that PayPal account for multiple options, you might not really want to go for this. But the idea is that when someone has made a payment, it will now send them over here. And what they recommend you do on that particular page, you want to go and give them a statement to say, thank you for your payment. Your transaction's been done via PayPal, all of that. Make sure you log into PayPal or check your junk or your spam email, etc., to see the details of the transaction. Because remember, we're not going via WooCommerce, where WooCommerce would fire off emails. What they'll now get is an email from PayPal. It'll include your email address. It will include what options they picked. So don't worry about that. It's not just going to say you paid $19. It will tell them what options they picked. But you may just want to let them know that, look, you know, you got to go to PayPal because they may be expecting an email from you. That is not a showstopper, in my opinion, because I've tested this out. And it works. I get an email, the dummy account I set up for the customer, they got an email as well. So everything goes through. And once it's gone through, it went and took them to this separate page I went and set up as well. It sends them there. So it doesn't send them back to this page. So it's a pretty decent system to use if you want to bypass WooCommerce or another transaction payment plugin system where you want people to either just get an online quote or maybe they pick their options and you want them to now pay for it. It's totally amazing what you can do with Elementor forms, right? I mean, this just blows my mind with the possibilities of just paying for things via your website. With just Elementor forms, we can allow our users to pick different services. They can have different quantities or even just have a singular quantity as well. They can have a grand total price. They can go and click pay with PayPal as well. And by the way, that button won't do anything until they go and fill in the name and email. This is all done with a bit of JavaScripty code. It's really simple and easy to do. And we're just using Elementor forms. This is how simple it is, okay? And there are quite a few fields, but if you stick at it, you will work through this and understand it, I hope. Well, I know I do. So here we've got an Elementor form. We've got name and email. We have an options field. If we click that, it is a checkbox, and we have our options, option A, and I've got $1. It's quite important that you make sure that you put this to be how you want it to be displayed, because it does link into the JavaScript code as well. The label for this is options, it's checkbox, and we have the ID called options as well. We then go to the quantity, which is a number. I've given it a label called quantity. Placeholder, you can see my minimum and maximum values. And if we go to the advanced tab, you can see it's got quantity underscore options. The reason why I've got underscore options is because we have got two sets of quantity fields, just like we got two sets of price fields. If we go to the price, this is just a price field. It's a text because we are going to show the currency, dollar, pound sign, GBP. And the ID is price underscore options. Very important again, because we've got two price fields. We need to be able to distinguish between them when we get to the JavaScripty code bit. We then have select. This is a copy of the options field. All I've done is change the items in there, and I've ensured the ID is called services. We have a quantity, copy of what we had before. So it's got the same values in terms of label and minimum, maximum value, but the advanced tab is quantity underscore services. We have the price. This is a text field again, copy of what we had above. But in the advanced tab, it's price underscore services. So I hope you can follow through the logic. And then we have total. Text field. I've popped in a placeholder of 0.00. It's a text field because we are going to show the currency. And I've given it the ID total. So that's all we're doing in the form. If we go to the advanced tab, though, for the form, there is a bit of styling as well. So this gives a dark color to the total. And down here, we've given a bit of a different grayish color for the price options and the price underscore services. You'll notice the submit button or send for the forms is missing. That's because I've gone and set it to be display none. And if I get rid of this code, the send appears. If you're going to pay with PayPal, because you now want them to buy the service rather than just getting an online quote, which we've covered in other videos, you don't want to have the submit button there as well, because it gets a little bit confusing. The first bit of HTML that we've now dropped in underneath our form, and sorry if I feel like I'm going through this a bit quick, because it kind of makes logical sense when you work through it. We have a bit of script here, and this is the script for your PayPal form. It does ensure that you can't hit the send button or anything like that unless the name and email has been populated. So that stops people from paying without completing the details, because that could mess things up a little bit for you. So over here, I've stated the email address that the payments will go to. Could be a business account, could be a personal account. And this code will also feed through the total. So when it goes to PayPal, without you having to enter in any API, it will take that over, and it also remembers what options you've selected as well. It's super clever and cool what this does. And if you do want to modify any of this for a particular reason, I would leave it because it works, other than changing your email address. Otherwise, I'll get all your payments and I don't intend to refund you for them. Just go and stick this into ChatGPT, but I would just make sure you've changed that bit over there. The second bit of code is kind of where the magic happens with these two options. So there's a lot of stuff over here, which is now going to ensure, your fields are feeding through correctly in terms of your quantity services, your quantity options, your prices and all of that. But over here is where it kind of sets, sorry, I said that a bit wrong. The prices is set over here. So if you've gone and said option A is $1, and that's the description you've got in there, you've got to make sure that when you get here, you put exact same wording. Because if you go and put $100, it won't follow through. You've also got to set your value. So if I had gone and set this to be $10, the return value would be 10. So modify it to work for whatever values you got. Here's the one for services. So if you had a third layer for another load of checkbox or select items, go and stick this in over here. And then down here is where it now starts to do the calculation. Now, if you are going to tinker with this, because you're going to have loads of options, take that code, stick it into some AI, explain the differences of what you're doing, and it will work it through for you. And basically, that's it. So that when you now go and view this and you've completed the name and email and you go and pick your options like that, like what I'm doing here. By the way, I've set these all just to be $1 in case I did go and pay it. And then you click it, it's going to take you over to PayPal and allow you to make the payment. But there is one little thing you do have to do though, even though you've gone and set this up inside of PayPal, and it is actually really simple and easy to do. The important thing is that when you've logged into your PayPal account as the vendor or the admin on the website, it might look a bit different whether you have got a business account or a personal account. This is just a dummy account that I was using to set up and show you how this works. You need to go and find the option called website preferences, okay? This is the same wording whether you're on a business account or not. Normally you got to go and click the settings cog or even go to seller's tool, but it'll either be in there and then you will find website preferences or it will be in seller tools. What you want to do is click on that and you will find an option called auto return. I recommend that if you are doing this and you are going to add PayPal onto a website, I would either set up a separate account, because what this will do is now say that every time there is a payment made, it will now auto return. Once the payment's made, it will send them over to this page. So if you're using that PayPal account for multiple options, you might not really want to go for this. But the idea is that when someone has made a payment, it will now send them over here. And what they recommend you do on that particular page, you want to go and give them a statement to say, thank you for your payment. Your transaction's been done via PayPal, all of that. Make sure you log into PayPal or check your junk or your spam email, etc., to see the details of the transaction. Because remember, we're not going via WooCommerce, where WooCommerce would fire off emails. What they'll now get is an email from PayPal. It'll include your email address. It will include what options they picked. So don't worry about that. It's not just going to say you paid $19. It will tell them what options they picked. But you may just want to let them know that, look, you got to go to PayPal because they may be expecting an email from you. That is not a showstopper in my opinion, because I've tested this out. And it works. I get an email, the dummy account I set up for the customer, they got an email as well. So everything goes through. And once it's gone through, it went and took them to this separate page I went and set up as well. It sends them there. I hope you found all of that super useful and it got you thinking about how you could literally use your Elementor form to like have a calculator on there and they could submit details or not submit details and just have it online. You could have multiple options, checkboxes, a bit of styling, but you could even get them to make a direct payment for the services and options they've picked. I mean, it's entirely up to you what you want to do, but I hope you really enjoyed the possibilities without using extra other third-party plugins. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're keeping it all in-house and you've got a lean, mean, killing machine website. Hey, I'm Imran, Web Squadron. Go and click the links. Go and check out our $1 business packs and our free packs as well. Hey, I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss, that's fact, taking big swings.